YouTube comments from a video titled, Hormone and Fertility Experts. We've been lied to about women's health. If this happens, call a doctor. Part 3.
A Fabulous 511 wrote,
Steva, thank you as so much for this interview. Holy crap. What a gold mine. It makes my chest physically squeeze, knowing there's 3.5 hours worth of content that can help me understand my own body better, coming from professionals in their field as well as women themselves, and getting to hear all of the questions I'd ever want to ask at any moment. You are so good at asking all the right questions. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm going to add so many views to this interview alone. Thank you. We'll be sharing this immediately.
At Lucy Watson 6476 wrote,
Absolutely loved this. I am a midwife and have a very candid relationship with the women in my family, but none of what they've shared with me about menopause comes close to what's been covered in this podcast. I am gobsmacked that so much of my personal and professional experiences are reflected in this conversation. Thank you, team. Keep up the excellent work. Women's health needs this visibility and information transfer because even my well-intentioned relative didn't know about half of this even when I was able to ask them the questions about what was happening to me. This podcast has been inspirational for me and has invigorated my professional and personal goals.
At Lily Loves Animals wrote,
I just started HRT September 5th estrogen patch progesterone 100 mg nightly and estradiol cream. WOW, what a game changer, like someone turned on a light switch. I'm 57, wish I went on it years ago, but my gyne said no, so I found a new gyne.
At Jana Golson 237 wrote,
Period pain is directly related to your diet throughout the month. If you eat very plant-forward and clean, natural ingredients, you will have way less pain. I know because I used to have pass-out level, toe-culling cramps. Learned to eat plant-forward, and the pain totally stopped.
Katia Rinkify wrote,
Thank you for this. I'm currently going through the fertility process and just met with a fertility specialist this week, and what was said around too. 1,400 hours about not feeling like I have done anything right hit me right in the heart. I haven't been able to really verbalize my feelings, and that's exactly what I felt through the process. But this has been so helpful to alleviate some of the pain and pressure I've been feeling.
Ethicist Talloed 9560 wrote,
Cold exposure reduce inflammation. I find it funny because I live in Quebec. We often get temperatures like -10 Celsius in winter, and that means I can just walk outside and sit down for 10 minutes to activate my parasympathetic system and reduce inflammation. I have endo. Thank you for that treatment option. I don't want to take pills.
And NickNix2 wrote,
First and foremost, thank you. Secondly, I'll watch this at home instead of my usual listen to it while doing work in the office. I choked up at the opening, highlighting that 50% of women who have unexplained infertility have endometriosis. I am that statistic. I am that female who believes a higher pain tolerance is a badge of honor. Can't wait to watch.
At Diane Clark 1678 wrote,
Menopause is an entire different animal compared to a general monthly cycle. PCOS is also so difficult to treat and so painful on top of the then mental health effect on infertility and not having been able to have a child. Dealing with these issues in silence is so hard.
At Jalekimip 6514 wrote,
Thank you so much for your support. Women's health has been ignored long enough. Thank you for brining in the best to educate both women and men in these issues.
At Mert Hevberger wrote,
I am fighting negative feelings every day for plus 10 years now. 12 years ago, 16 years old. My period became very irregular, and I fully lost my period plus 5 years ago. I went to the gynecologist, and I was diagnosed with PCOS. I had several symptoms that matched PCOS, but deep down I had this gut feeling that it wasn't the right diagnosis. I decided to get my blood tested again, and last week I found out that I don't have PCOS. It's hypothalamic amenorrhea. My cycle has been shut off because of too much stress, physical and mental, plus caused by REDS. I've been eating too few calories for what I burn. I'm a fanatic when it comes to fitness and always wanted to lose weight, but it felt harder for me to lose weight than another person, so I kept eating less and my metabolism got worse slower. Over time, combined with more than 10 years of low mood and depressive feelings, my body has basically shut down my menstrual cycle as a way to protect me because my body and brain don't feel safe enough to support a pregnancy right now. I'm actually relieved to finally know this because it means that I can do something about it. I can help my body feel safe again and know that it's possible for me to carry a pregnancy in the future. Always insist on getting the proper test done with your doctor. I was dismissed at first, but I kept pushing and I'm so glad I did.
A D1V1N1TI wrote,
I don't know why listening to Stephen repeat, question this subject is both strange and satisfactory. Like I've never heard a man take ANY interest, which is actually quite sad. What have we become?
a Dave Halpin 2902 wrote,
I cried many times throughout this episode. Now at 54, and having suffered many of these issues, especially having had an endometrioma the size of a tennis ball, I understand the pain. Thank you all for publicly speaking about all these things.
at Lionspell wrote,
I have severe acne, a hormonal one, and also my skin is oily. But when I tried birth control pills, it temporarily clears it, but once you stop taking it, it comes back again. I stopped because it gave me headaches and mood swings and messes with my menstruation, as well as the OIOI skin does not go away. I then went to the dermatologist and she made me take oral isotretinoin, and this clears my acne without messing with my menstruation, and it did reduce the sebum produced. I do weightlifting and getting enough sleep and lessen my processed food intake.
at Leonyabinet 804 wrote,
Please let me know. When told you have a hormone imbalance, it is never explained what hormones and how are they imbalanced. From there I have noticed that the medical response is to put you on HRT. So if hormones are personalized, shouldn't the response be personalized? What is this pill? What does it do exactly? I now know women from 50 to girls in their teens being put on this.
at Ashcat wrote,
I went through menopause at 30. Loved the menopause talk. I was able to have one child before entering menopause, and it was so difficult becoming pregnant. It all makes sense now.
at Arianez 2566 wrote,
I also have stage 4 endometriosis, and even though my NP suggested I might have endo, they put me on birth control pills at 16, then the depot shot at 18. I didn't want to become infertile down the road, so I took myself off the shot at 22. Never was able to conceive, then was sent to the ER at 34 due to ruptured ovarian cyst. Was told my abdomen was the worst he'd ever seen. They had to remove appendix, but left the ovary in there. A WK later, that cyst grew an abscess that turned septic and back into the ER and almost died. They never talked to me about freezing eggs or alternative ways to possibly have a child one day. Went for some tests and was told one of my fallopian tubes is completely blocked by endometrial tissue and I will never be able to have children. I was put back on depot and now at 42 have had to accept that hard fact. It crushed me to be told that in such a blatant cold manner, then just sent me on my way.
as Mish P9N wrote,
Absolutely loved every minute of this as a woman in her early 30s, and I learned so much. I'm very much looking forward to part 2.
I could listen to these women talk for 12 plus hours.
At lightning speed 27 wrote.
Darling Doctors X4, you are the suffragettes of our time. Grateful beyond measure for the role you are playing in the evolution of the glory of women, and the whole world indeed. Love from Land.
At Camilla wrote.
Thank you, Stephen and Doug team, for this. As a female nurse, I can't explain how important discussions like these are. You see how these smart ladies are in agreement. Very mindful, very demure. Undeniable truths across the board.
At Wish Angel 3 wrote.
If I walk, every day my cycle will be once a month, but if I don't make the effort to walk, then it will be every 2 months, and lots of bloating.
At John Lilly 2832 wrote.
What a great topic, Stephen. Yes, I know the basic differences between men and women, but I didn't know the details, conditions, and the importance of having a cycle. Eye-opening.
The Sadie Zoe J9J wrote.
I appreciate this video a lot. Solid crypto guidance really changes the game. I managed to hit $21,000 in gains within just 28 days. Couldn't be happier right now.
And Nat Hill wrote.
I'm sure you won't see this, but can you do an episode on testosterone? What happens if my husband needs to supplement and is low on testosterone? Please, can you do a show on this?
Fur3 Love wrote.
Appreciate the expertise, but cannot ignore the lack of diversity among the panelists. There are many WOC within medicine who could also provide essential insight and perspective for a large part of your audience.
Prince Valiant wrote.
Ro should have a cut-down version of his program, because it is always too long to watch. Cutting it to 30 minutes at max would be ideal.
At the Nomer wrote.
One thing that I pick up instantly, not only in these women, but in anyone who looks outside of their own being for solutions, is that they are all speaking from a victim mentality, as if someone outside of them is to blame for what they perceive to be a problem. We each create our own reality based on how we perceive reality. It's all you doing you to you. So, undo your own problems one at a time, and you'll be just fine. Otherwise, you will always blame circumstances rather than your own perception.
Tipianas wrote.
Wow. This is why I stopped wearing my Whoop after 1+ year, because it kept saying my recovery was bad during certain times of my cycle. It started to stress me out instead of help me. Also, I have great respect for the women in this episode. It's so beautiful to watch all of them in one room sharing their wisdom. Thank you for making this happen.
At Escapada Borealesiguine wrote.
I am excited for part 2. These 4 women's thanks Doak team for this much-needed conversation. I wish I had time to translate such great episode to share it with my family. Looks like after part 1, I'll talk to my doctor to get on low-dose estrogen to help during peri. Did not knew it was an option. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I must also say that the quality of your guests and the information you are sharing with the world is life-changing. What a phenomenal podcast this is.
At Audie wrote.
As a woman of 66, whose only medication is cannabis, and the knowledge that the medical study and application of cannabis is not done due to being federally illegal, I would be curious to see the studies that show the detrimental effects from cannabis on fertility. Being a long-time user has taught me personal bias in the medical field is a real thing. I'm not saying the statements made here are untrue, but I'm going to need to see the data. P.S. I am working on hormone replacement to be proactive in my overall health, as well as yoga and heavy lifting. I just hate seeing cannabis maligned without supporting evidence.
Adam77 Einike wrote.
Great conversation, great points though. Though I wish you would have involved someone with a more natural holistic approach into your round. I know 4 is already many, But there are many alleyways, naturopathy, homeopathy, all pathways in this subject that would have brought in another wonderful perspective.
Tessely wrote,
This was so informative. The information on female athletes and low body weight and the correlation with cessation of menstrual cycle is something not discussed enough. I have so many friends over the years with disordered eating, very low body weight, or who overtrain, all of which is completely normalized in Southern California, and they stop cycling, develop PCOS or endometriosis. Nobody ever thought about long-term health damage until later when trying to get pregnant. Appreciate the panel discussing these issues because women need as much information as possible, and we really have to be advocates for our own health. The story of the friend suffering for 17 years with endometriosis was heartbreaking.
at Misty_coaches wrote,
Oh my gosh. I cannot believe you got these four in the same room together. I have followed all of these women for several years now, and they are all my heroes in revolutionizing women's health. I am so excited listening to this. You have no idea. I will be passing this on to all of my coaching clients and all of the men and women in my life. Thank you so much, Stephen, and the amazing doctors sitting around this table for doing what you do. This is so necessary.
at Mary Domansky wrote,
Wow, this explains so much. I'm postmenopausal. I think I have PCOS. I never had children. I'm insulin resistant. I now have high LDL and osteoporosis and visceral fat on my abdomen that I cannot get rid of through any exercise or diet. Since my diagnosis, I have changed my eating habits and have as many foods to combat inflammation and lower my sugar levels. I do fast until noon, so now I will stop. So much information. I'm blown away.
at Jasabraham wrote,
This is the first time I sat straight 3 hours watching your podcast, Stephen. Also, I waited to finish the whole podcast before commenting. I have to give it to these ladies. They are doing a great service for the whole world. However, the side effect of this we still don't have yet. It is sad the society sees a woman as a child-bearing machine, after which considered useless, be it developed or underdeveloped countries. It's high time her life is considered more than a baby machine. They are working and adding value to society in more than one way. Many men, even in USA, seems to care very little for the female in the society, be it office or home. I see it daily. They don't mean it, but it's a part of how they are groomed to be. Summary: very informative podcast. Thank you, Stephen, for caring for us and making podcasts always better than the last one, and very useful and helpful to the listener.
at Wapala G7T wrote,
5 rich people saying periods should be celebrated. Obviously, from an hormonal physiological perspective, they are correct. But given how insanely expensive tampons are, there was a time when very little food had the pleasant side effect of no periods and not having to buy tampons when I was younger. Luckily, things have changed for me, but I bet there are still women who think this way.
CS Freya wrote,
I know I'm late to asking, but if you ever do another video to go over women health, I would love to hear more on the different forms of contraceptives, not just pills, but longer-term types like Nexplanon, and what is normal/healthy or symptoms to look out for that is deemed concerning. Also, if there is research, or at least a good theory on the phases best to do something while using the Nexplanon, similar to if not using contraceptions, to rest when bleeding, and then exercise in a different phase, etc.
at Bobblet Lebs wrote,
I gained weight only in pregnancy, and only when put on the hormone prednisone. And when I mentioned to multiple doctors, they never took me seriously. They wouldn't ever draw my levels.
Edwit12 wrote.
Western society has a systematic problem with health in general. Everything is tailored to fix symptoms, not solve the problem. Mostly comes down to nutrition issues, and you're not allowed to say what helps unless it gets FDA approval. It's changing with the internet, but still can be difficult to sort through. God forbid someone question official narratives.
At Mind Momentum, Emotional Well 6343 wrote.
Thank you so much for bringing these wonderful women together for such a powerful yet poignant discussion on women's health and the history of the medical establishment that has let women down for way too long. It's wonderful to read and listen to many more women sharing information around these important topics. Still a long way to go, but a big step forward that is long overdue.
Eponde_America wrote.
I'm listening, and this is incredibly informative. However, it would have been great to have also an over 60 woman involved who also is a medicine woman. The spiritual side of the journey of being woman is just as, and even in cases more important. And as I listen to the reasons for pain during menstruation and moon, often it is the tilt of the pelvis. We have an accident, an injury, we step wrong off the curb, the pelvis can tilt, and then the blood is fighting against gravity because of the tilt. I'd love to see this podcast get even more risky.
Ikati Galvin wrote.
Thank you so much for this conversation. Why do we tend to see IVF or egg freezing as something unnatural? We rarely question technology when it repairs a knee or keeps someone alive with insulin. No one calls Viagra unnatural. But the moment technology enters the uterus, the narrative shifts. Suddenly it's fear, taboo, moral judgment. That double standard doesn't come from science. It comes from patriarchy and religion, from thousands of years of conditioning that taught us reproduction is not just biology, but sacred property. Conceiving life was cast as a divine act, something a woman must not control, only receive. That belief system built an entire moral framework around keeping women's fertility in the realm of the mystical, because as long as it stayed mystical, it stayed regulated by men. Priests, husbands, lawmakers, doctors, all gatekeepers of what was called natural. So when women use science to take ownership of reproduction, it's not just a medical act, it's a cultural rupture. It challenges the old order that equated obedience with virtue and surrender with femininity. What's really being threatened is not nature, it's power.
Jody Page CK1NE wrote.
Thank you so much for this convo. Stephen, love how you refer to yourself as a woman. Very cute. I am 48 years old and have come into my perimenopausal years being totally betrayed by doctors with whom I have been petitioning to for years about being on BP meds since 30, having constantly low iron and low Vit D. It wasn't until I finally once sent for iron infusions in 2024, which didn't work at all, when one day out of the blue I ended up in the hospital with a hole in my stomach. On the CT scan, they also saw my left kidney was engulfed with cancer. No warnings other than high BP and low iron. I also suffer with depression, which has increased 100-fold since the pandemic. I appreciate hearing that I wasn't a whiny woman. I had reasons. It's too late for me, but I will pass on the message from the hilltop to and to my sons so they can be like Stephen and care to understand.
At Yasmin Y7 wrote.
Thank YOU for this episode. I learned so much. These doctors are all excellent at explaining medical concepts. I also appreciate that you didn't edit out some of the additional commentary about how the insurance industry has changed guidelines and what is actually healthy these. Thank you. Please do more of these.
Kindan Bloom wrote.
Thank you so much for this. I'm 36 weeks pregnant after years of IVF and an endometriosis diagnosis. It wasn't until I couldn't get pregnant that I was taken seriously. Made me feel like my only value was reproduction.
At Ashley Shield 9032 wrote,
Vasectomies have long-term consequences to men as well. People need to start seeing children as a blessing and not a curse. They need to get their priorities straight and embrace how we were made to function and live as human beings, which includes having children in our primary years, as that increases our long-term health.
At Black Rose 8643 wrote,
Thank you for sharing this information. However, all white women on this team. No representations for black women who are largely affected by the worst menopause symptoms. Tells me that my chances of survival are slim in this world.
At Stephanie Cannon 6447 wrote,
I have been watching YouTube for 10 plus years and have literally never commented on a video before, but I feel compelled to express my gratitude for this video. So much of what has been discussed in this video has been my experience recently, including being put on birth control at a young age and taking it for 14 years, over-exercising and under-eating, which led to hypothalamic amenorrhea, a diagnosis of PCOS, multiple experiences of being brushed off by doctors, with my most recent experience being told that my doctor at Boston IVF telling me that she doesn't agree with the diagnosis of hypothalamic amenorrhea because I look fine, not anorexic. My husband and I have also been TTC for 11 months now with no success. I identify so much with these women when they discuss the emotional burden of struggling with not getting pregnant right away. I too have cried too many times to count because I feel like such a failure, and I keep questioning why it's not happening for me, even though I'm doing everything right. I think it's so important to keep having conversations like this and continue to educate women and men on women's health. Thank you, Stephen, for this video. I feel more seen by each of you than I do by some of my own doctors.
At Neophyte 4156 wrote,
Women deserve the same level of focus when it comes to medical health and wellness. Come on, we are no longer in the era where we think man is the only gender. I love all the women in my life more than me. Thank you, Doak, and all of you amazing and beautiful women who are game changers in your own rights.
At Resigned 77 wrote,
How/why has endometriosis become so common? I'm 57, and I don't remember girls talking about this, and we talked about everything. A classmate got TSS, which was horrifying. She survived, thankfully, but where did all these autoimmune issues come from? I suffer from psoriatic problems myself.
At Darth Treya 8305 wrote,
I have hypothyroidism. I had to fight for that diagnosis after my general practitioner waved off my symptoms. I went to an endocrinologist on my own to get help. I'm finding myself in this position again in perimenopause/early menopause. I am having minor health issues, the biggest being gut and mental health. My OG/GYN sent me home with a prescription for estrogen for my night sweats. Not once has anyone actually checked what my levels are. I also have an IUD, so not prescribed any progesterone. My thyroid levels are checked every 6 months. In fact, they won't even refill my prescription until I do the blood work, yet I have never had a baseline test of any of my other hormones. How does that make any sense?
At in_the_kitchen_with_ just wrote,
Can you do this same topic with a group of naturopathic, acupuncture, and functional medicine practitioners? I think the contrast and clinical experiences would be a dynamic contrast to this conversation.
At Chaos_Corella wrote,
My experience was not dissimilar to Liv. I also had lots of little fibroids. Since having a hysterectomy leaving ovaries, but they started giving up soon after, the pain has completely gone. The difference is night and day. Thank you for covering this subject in such detail. It isn't only some men who dismiss this, it is also a lot of women.
At Leotatum 4879 wrote,
I enjoyed listening to these four amazing women and learning about their experience. As a man, it would be less than sincere to say I understood everything, but I'm listening. Cheers.
At Blumandroot wrote,
This is scary. I was telling someone recently that I didn't see my period, and I took in with my 3 kids, and they couldn't believe. Since I started taking pills for more than a decade now, I don't experience my period. Now I am scared. With all the inflammations and spinal issues, the health system are not helping in any way.
At Only Just a Carrot wrote,
I had doctors ask me if my periods were heavier or more painful than usual, but that is completely meaningless when you've only ever had your own. It was horrible trying to get my obgyn to take me seriously. I was diagnosed with endometriosis in my mid-20s when I had a softball-sized ovarian cyst removed. Since then, I have been treated with birth control, and I must admit that not having to deal with my cycle is a major improvement. However, I have a large number of chronic health issues, and I can't help but feel that all of them are interrelated. In addition to endometriosis, I have been diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome, chronic fatigue syndrome, chronic headaches/migraines, and major depression. I have struggled with my weight since childhood. Every test that my doctors run comes back within normal limits, but something is clearly wrong. I have tried all kinds of diets, but cooking all of my meals from scratch is impractical given my fatigue. I know that my doctors want to help me, but they seem to know just as much as I do about all of my conditions, which is simply demoralizing. Why does all of this have to be so overwhelmingly complicated?
At Tamarajify wrote,
I am truly soaking in and up this information. Thank you so much. I really hope you continue the conversations. I have plans on rewatching this again.
At Marvin Haven wrote,
I had that conversation decades ago with my ex-wife, who passed about 4 years ago. It changed behavior and physical levels of well-being. Ending the relationship before her passing, my attempt to help was resented because no paper document has my name on it as an expert, but doctors confirmed you should be doing what I told her I heard about some years earlier.
At Barbarasso Stack 8459 wrote,
I recommend to check Marquette method. Natural family planning through tracking hormones in urine, not just symptoms. You know exactly when your estrogen is rising and when you have your LH surge. 98% pearl efficiency, perfect use and normal use. Not too many days of abstaining. Better than all of other side effects from other forms of contraception.
At Paula Davis 7020 wrote,
Holistic practitioners have been trying to have the discussion on these matters since Rockefeller blacklisted them in lieu of petroleum-based pharmaceuticals and male-centric medicine. But mainstream called them woo-woo. Amazing what happens to mindset changes in a crisis. Suddenly what was crazy and invalid is a lifesaver. Good to hear than qualified people getting on board with what has been known for eons. Maybe they can make a buck in it. The others did it in service of humanity with little funding.
At Ella DHX4MZ wrote,
This discussion would have benefited greatly from having an evolutionary biologist who could have explained how modern-day practices, i.e., working outside the home, environmental exposures, vaccinations, and waiting until middle age to have babies has affected fertility, menopause, and women's hormones as a whole.
At Marge Princess wrote,
So I want to say I am 51 post-meno, lift weights and exercise 4/5 times a week. Started 3 years ago. I'm happy and in the best shape of my life. I take creatine, protein, lift heavy for me, do 2/3 15 minutes hits a week. I add in jump and flexibility training as well. I don't have great sleep patterns as I work nights. For 10 years I'm a cat. I have power naps when I can. You can get through it naturally. There is hope. I believe the creatine is a miracle. I won't go without it or my daily turmeric/ginger/pepper shot.
At Agnes Oy 4SW wrote,
Feeling deeply grateful for this insightful conversation with 4 incredible women researchers. Such an important and empowering message. I've learned so much. Thank you so much, Stephen.
At Jesse 90-ish wrote,
Whenever I have a question as to why something doesn't have an answer yet, it's always met with there isn't enough women research yet. I'm so thankful to be seeing more of this content. Keep it up and connect with your people and encourage this type of discussion.
At P_YT wrote,
I've only seen the guests in this panel and hit like because this is going to be a mega important podcast and needs all the attention. Can't wait to spend the time to listen in.
At Alselna Williams 6157 wrote,
Estrogen. There was a lot of bad press as I was maturing, so it was a real challenge to know whether it would be healthy to take it. I'm 65.
At Serenity Thepigme 8576 wrote,
I didn't know until almost my 30s that my cycles were so messed up. I am hormonally imbalanced and have had to change my diet and cannot use birth control or Plan B type things. I also have factor V laden, which makes being treated for things very hard. I have a very hard time being treated because people don't know how to treat me because it just hadn't been looked at enough. Thank you so much for sharing this.
At his cadence wrote,
Fasting royally screwed up my cycle. I've never been irregular until I tried fasting. I also lost 0 pounds on a 5-day water fast. I even went to the gym/spin classes. I've been messed up ever since. It's been 3 years.
At Deep Thought 6601 wrote,
Throughout all of the history of feminism and modern feminist culture, somehow these topics are just now being taken serious when average women all across the US have been suffering. This, in my opinion, is the leading cause in the infertility crisis. The government knows that, but they aren't going to stop pushing these toxic foods onto the population because the money they make from it. Then when women try and do better and switch what they eat, the government then contaminated all the organic natural stuff with additives and chemicals. A lot of us feel doomed.
At Jacqueline Gonzales 3993 wrote,
If we had a way to see some of the answers explained it in a more visual way, in a sort of clips or something, maybe that would help a lot more to all the people that can't or don't want to see the entire video. I'll share this, but I'm not sure if everyone would pay attention during 3 hours. But thank you for this episode.
At Zebras Whaler wrote,
Awesome podcast. More conversations like this will help many men and women. There's plenty more that could be explained which is not understood, specifically because women's bodies are very different and the response to a cycle varies a lot from woman to woman.
At Eleanor Vannon 4147 wrote,
My brother was admitted into the hospital we both go to for stomach pain. Meanwhile, when I had gone there for a fever of 104, blood in my yellow liquid diarrhea, lack of appetite, and be a weird bump on my leg, they sent me home without doing anything. My mom took me again 2 days later as I was worse, not very aware of my surroundings and unable to eat at all, and they turned me away again. My mom ended up taking me to a hospital that was far away, and thankfully they took me in and helped me. They got a look at me in the waiting room and took me back almost right away. They discovered that I had ulcers. Ulcers that the GI doctor said looked so painful he gave me painkillers right then and there as he was still doing the colonoscopy. I am ever so grateful to that hospital. The differences in the way that first hospital treated my brother's stomach pain seriously. These, I had more serious symptoms than him, and yet they hospitalized him and sent me away. That is wrong.
At Helena Grant 7568 wrote,
It's disappointing and problematic that there are no perspectives from Black and other women of color clinicians, particularly, who have dedicated their lives to providing culturally concordant care. The concept of what weathering does particularly to the Black female body is deeply connected to this subject.
At Sister Gaming Channel 3844 wrote,
I love this. I'm 50, and it's odd to see people talking about this, but I'm so happy for my daughters and their future that men and women are taking the hormonal complexities of womanhood seriously. For years, we've been sidelined as hysterical, anxious, emotional, or irrational. Thank you, Stephen, for using your platform to do this. It really means a lot.
At Astrielia wrote,
I would love to hear their opinion on a low progesterone mini pill, such as 0PO in T35 milligrams tablets of noritestrone. Some of these lower dosage pills will still let the period come through, which is considered good. But are they still negatively affecting hormones in a way that doesn't show in the menstrual cycle itself? Amazing episode. Love the variety of competence at this table as it gives so many viewpoints from different specialized areas. Thank you.
At Ella DHX4MZ wrote,
The medical industrial complex has ignored women's health on purpose because healthcare has absolutely nothing to do with your health and well-being and everything to do with monetizing off of your illness.
At Jess Brown 84 wrote,
I didn't have a period for years after I had my last kid. Ended up having a pituitary tumor causing Cushing disease. Had surgery and got my period back pretty quickly. Then ended up having pituitary tumor #2 a year ago, while having thyroid cancer.
At Stephanie Garcia 6219 wrote,
This is the roundtable discussion I've been hoping for. I've seen their individual interviews and was hoping you would get them all together. This is amazing.
As Cheyenne Streeter wrote,
2 hours, 16 minutes. People don't talk about how expensive it is for alternative conception methods, and insurance does not cover it for most providers. It is a luxury to be able to have even 1 to 2 rounds of IVF, and even IVF is not a straight line answer. Even Stephen talked about a woman who suffered through 7 IVF failures. That's a lot of money that the average person doesn't have.
At Eleanor Vannon 4147 wrote,
I have always had debilitating period pain. So painful, all I do is lay in bed or sit on the toilet with a heated pad. And I can't sit very long, so it is back to bed, and there I stay till it is the next day. There was only one time when I had my period with a bearable amount of pain, and that was after I had been at the ER and given saline. I am assuming my problem stems from my chronic dehydration. My doctor and I are working on that. But it is slow going. We need to have these conversations. Thank you.
As Cheyenne Streeter wrote,
2 hours, 13 minutes. I would have loved to see at least one Black physician on the panel, because the nuance when you pile that on would add more value even to the minority listeners.
At Golden Life 30 wrote,
I lost my period at 19. Was told it was because of PCOS. For decades. This year I get a new endo-AMD. She was like, NO. That is not why. So now I'm 47 taking birth control and having a period for the first time in 20 plus years. I hate it here, but I hope to slow the biological damage I have incurred due to lacking healthcare for so many years.
At Camellia Paneva 302 wrote,
Funny enough, I've just finished a book called The Gender Diet that talks about the same things, and it's pretty good. I've been following the advices and have experienced better sleep and fat mobilization. Fascinating.
At Alejandro wrote,
As someone who is currently going through scans back and forth with the NHS to see if I have endometriosis, because my periods are agony, the process has been so painful and deflating. This podcast has made me cry. I've never felt so seen. And you have taught me things I didn't know and needed to know. I'm only halfway through.
At Love the Self 88 wrote,
So grateful you're creating these kinds of open conversations. These women are changing women's health for the better. Would have loved to see Dr. Mindy Pels in this convo too, however this was an incredible pod. Thank you for shining a light on women's health. Truly.
At the Cookie Cups wrote,
I have a Mirena IUD for 9 years, and I am on an estrogen for 3 years. Due to endometriosis to inhibit cyst growth on my ovary, I am 43. I've always wondered if it was safe to be on it continuously without breaks, and haven't been able to find anyone discussing it. This is the closest I have seen so far hitting on that particular topic, although they were talking about younger people and how they should avoid it if they can. Any info on older women? Is it safe to not have a period for years?
At Mind Your Own 777 wrote,
It's the food. The food that the FDA approves of in the US is banned in most other countries. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and cell phones with a radiation add-on to it. Eat healthy real food and get into nutrition. Chase Tree Berry Balances female hormones. There are health supplements that are for women's reproductive health at local health food stores, Whole Foods, Amazon, Walmart, etc. They work. Best wishes, ladies. For centuries, women around the world dealt with their health naturally.
At Beach Gal 2023 wrote,
1920 talking about the curiosity in medicine. Doctors can no longer afford to take risks. Be curious and dream as he did as a child, dreaming to be a doctor and save lives. Insurance, attorneys, and corporate ownership have taken those dreams away.
At Maystar 2366 wrote,
I have primary ovarian insufficiency. I just kept being dismissed as in perimenopause at 34, maybe sooner TBH. I've had unexplained infertility my entire life, so it's probably all linked but idiopathic. Finally found a doctor who didn't dismiss me and referred me to an endocrinologist. She prescribed HRT, and it has been a lifesaver. My mental health declined very rapidly in just a few years. I felt like I had dementia at times. I couldn't have cared if I died, and I hated everyone close to me. I have to take HRT until I'm 51 to protect myself. Some women suffer this much earlier than me, in their teens, early 20s. Don't just assume it's just perimenopause. The symptoms are similar, but they are very different. I feel terrible for my mum, my grandmother, her mother, and so on. So many women just suffered through menopause in silence.
At Braslawskate wrote,
Hugely important conversation, and I really appreciate and respect Stephen, who is a great interviewer, and the speakers. Love Dr. Sims because she looks at natural ways to work with the body. However, it drives me crazy that we are still promoting synthetic hormones, trying to treat the symptoms, not thinking about the long-term effects on mental and physical health. That's why functional natural medicine is the future, because some of these doctors are only thinking about how to cover up the symptoms. Is having sex with protection that much more important than long-term impact on health, so it's okay to pump yourself with potent synthetic hormones for years? A little disappointed with some of the viewpoints, to be honest.
At Mayray Smith 1095 wrote,
Stephen, wow. Personally, I think you should be knighted for this podcast alone. I might be slightly biased, but what brilliant subject matter on so many levels. I'm so glad you decided to have these long overdue conversations on your wonderful platform. Plus, what awesome professional lionesses you chose for the panel. Thank you. I salute you.
At Angelique Dominic U1G wrote,
After Nexplanon, I stopped getting my period for over 3 years when I got off of it. I was scared I'd never get it back, but after a while I got it back.
At Filipino Vegas Life 70 wrote,
I'm against IVF and freezing eggs because it eliminates an important process of the egg choosing the sperm for the best match. It's not just about the fastest and strongest sperm, the egg actually chooses the best matching. So how can injecting a sperm in the egg know you've chosen a sperm that's strong enough to reach the egg and also know the egg has approved that sperm? When you forced injected the sperm into the egg.
At Jeanette2475 wrote,
I loved this episode and learned a lot. But I love coffee for breakfast. I don't overtrain and I sleep great and don't eat a lot of simple carbs. It maybe I am an anomaly, but I just literally love the intermittent fasting. I always feel sluggish if I eat before the afternoon.
At Ashley Shield 9032 wrote,
I haven't finished the video yet, but I haven't heard anyone touch on how the immune system, which drives inflammation, can majorly impact your hormones. This needs to be looked at too. Inflammation drives so many chronic health issues, specifically brain inflammation, as the hypothalamus and pituitary are what signals the release of hormones. And cell and mitochondria function are huge as well. If the cell goes long enough without the necessary nutrients and enzymes it needs, the mitochondria shifts and morphs into survival mode to keep the cell alive. If you don't fix that, you won't be able to address hormone functions.
Fuller S wrote,
1. 34 estrogen. As a Southeast Asian woman, I often joke to my how youthful we look until when I hit 50 years old. He'll turn to me in bed be shocked because I would have shrunk. Everything is sagging and my hair is completely grey. Now I understand why this happens.
At Nemesis Bianchi 5181 wrote,
Is there a possibility that a woman can get pregnant instantly at 42 without frozen eggs? I mean, naturally. We see it happen to my mom, and she had me, her one and only child.
At JVRVLNTNGRCSPNZ wrote,
I get furious when I realize that everything is designed for men. From the funding of the research on medical topics to the information that is given to us when we don't feel well.
At Lindagert 552 wrote,
Birth control pills are poison. Moderation with diet, exercise, and working outside the home. Men will not take the time to listen to this 2 to 4 hours of discussion. I'm a daughter of a mother who took DES. Luckily, I am okay, but my mother died of endometrial cancer. Most likely from this synthetic hormone prescribed by a doctor to supposedly prevent miscarriage, proven to be deadly.
At Brigitte 3819 wrote,
Phenomenal talk. I would love to know what important health tests women should get throughout their life. What blood tests, when to get bone density scan, ultrasound to check for PCOS/endo. Tests that could help inform us what lifestyle changes we should personally take and when.
At _Indigoildy_ wrote,
12 hours since video is posted and 148,449 views. Speak volumes on how much discussion like this is needed, how much women feel left out and let down while going through all midlife shenanigans. As Gen Xer, I can confirm we received zero input on what to expect from late 30s onwards. It was just suck it up as with everything else. And since it's 2025 and Gen X made a decision on not having it, educate family, educate friends, and educate public. Things change when awareness is raised.